We're out here running 6 miles. It's a bit windy. Just in the news recently, the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, he admitted to putting down her dog. I don't necessarily want to comment on her justification. I mean, she gave her rationale of why she felt justified in doing that. Maybe that's justifiable, maybe not. But a lot of people were highly critical of her doing that. And so it got me to thinking about how we as Christians relate to animals in general and what the Bible has to say about that. I think the proof text really there is all the way back in Genesis, where God gives us dominion over the earth, over all plants and animals. And so what that means is it's our responsibility to properly care for God's creation. So properly caring for the earth and properly caring for animals and properly caring for other humans as the creation of God. And of course, humans being unique in that we are created in the image and likeness of God. A lot could be said about taking care of God's creation in terms of what I would call the Earth Day cult, where people tend to, as Paul said in Romans, worship the creation rather than the creator. And I think that when you look at properly caring for God's creation and putting it into context in dominion under humans, you for sure have to say that that means not abusing God's creation, not mistreating God's creation. So in the context of animals, that's caring for animals, not abusing animals. We see time and time again people that have pets that shouldn't have pets because the pets are malnourished, they're neglected. That is not properly exercising dominion over God's creation. But then on the flip side, people essentially worship their pets. How often do you see people treating animals like humans and treating humans like animals? People use that as justification as to not care about people and only care about animals. They're created in the image and likeness of God. And what we can see is that that's a unique imprint of humanity. Image and likeness of God is what gives us our soul. It gives us the eternity within us. Whereas animals don't have that soul, don't have that image and likeness of God. They don't have that eternity in them. And if you think about it, that's a good thing, because why would we want animals to have souls, which would open them to the possibility of being either good or bad, and the bad ones spending an eternity away from God? Like, of course not. That's ludicrous. So it's actually a good thing, I think, that humanity is unique in being the image and likeness of God. And you've seen how this natural order of exercising dominion over pets has been twisted. You'll see people offering pet blessings, pet baptisms, but those are very spiritual things. An eternal essence of a being. That eternal essence belongs to God, whom He has placed inside of us, and not animals. The proper way to exercise dominion over animals is to care for them, to not mistreat them, but to also not elevate them to a level of eternal significance to where we start to functionally worship them or use that as an excuse to not care for God's image bearers in humanity. And so whether or not the governor of South Dakota violated that commandment to exercise dominion over animals, I don't know. I don't know the personal situation there. But I will say that Paul gives license to eating animals. One of the reasons that God gives us animals is for sustenance. So it's not wrong to be a meat eater. But then we also take into consideration the cultural context, like we clearly don't eat dog. And then elsewhere in Acts, Peter is told to rise, kill, and eat. So there's definitely license for the killing of animals for sustenance. So I think of like deer hunting. Deer hunting is very responsible. Not only do deer hunters take it seriously, and a lot, if not all of them, use as much of the meat as possible to feed them and their families, but it also helps population control, which ultimately benefits the deer in the long run. I think a lot of people are heated about that. There's Christians that take the stance of any killing is abuse, and so they're vegan. And to them, I would say, Paul tells us there are those that abstain from eating certain foods and only eat vegetables. And part of the context of that verse is animals that were sacrificed in the name of false gods, whatever. Paul says at the end of the day, it's just meat. They're fake gods anyway. You can eat them. But taking that to a broader context of just eating meat in general, there is room for you to abstain from eating meat and not have judgment passed on you. And as a believer in Christ, you can eat meat and not be condemned. What we should always do is seek to glorify and honor God in everything that we do. Whether that's eating or drinking, whatever we do all to the glory of God. That's in Corinthians. We absolutely want to exercise careful and thoughtful dominion over God's creation in a way that glorifies God.